Hi friends, welcome to Get Your Play Online. My name is Katie and today we're going to be doing a fun in the kitchen. We're going to be making a dessert beach snack. So, let's get started. So where I live it's starting to get really warm and it's very summery. So I thought that we could start by reading this book. It's called Duck and Goose Go to the Beach because hopefully we'll be able to go to beaches sometime soon. Okay, let's get started. So, it says, "Don't you just love it here, Duck?" Goose honked. The two friends relaxed in the early morning sun and listened to the hum of the meadow. Butterflies flitted and grass swished in the breeze. "Yes, I do," Duck agreed. "Let's never leave," said Goose. So you can see Goose is lying down and his friend Duck is sitting there with him. And I'm guessing that Duck wants to go on an adventure and Goose wants to sit and relax all day. Sometimes in the summer that's a great thing to do, just sit and relax because we're always busy with school. Suddenly, Duck jumped up. "You just gave me the greatest idea, Goose," he quacked. "Let's leave. Let's go away." "A what?" Goose honked. "Away. Let's take a trip." You can see that the duck is very excited and Goose is like, "I don't want to do that." Goose seems to be very happy to sit and relax in the grass. Goose gulped. "A trip? A trip sounds far away. I like close." You can see he's trying to get the duck to stay. "We could go on an adventure," Duck said. "An adventure? That sounds scary," Goose honked. "Come on, Goose. A hike might be fun," Duck quacked. You can see that the duck is trying to push the goose away. The duck wants to leave. "A hike?" said Goose. "That sounds like a fine way to twist your ankle." You can see that he's laying on the grass. He really doesn't want to leave. Duck sighed. He gazed across the meadow toward a distant hill and began walking. Goose followed. "I will walk, but I will not hike," he grumbled. So you can see he's sad and doesn't really want to go. Why would anyone want to leave this meadow? Goose wondered. Like this stump, this hollow log, the gurgling stream, you can see the stream, our ball, of course, the lily pond, and don't forget the shady thicket. You can see there's some trees that have some nice shade for them to relax in. Duck and Goose floated along a stream they never floated along before, so they're probably traveling down this stream. They walked by a pile of stones they never walked by before, so you can see there's some rocks, and past the biggest tree they'd ever seen. See how tall it is? They walked across fields, up and down hills. You can see they're going up and down. By the time Goose reached the top of the highest hill, Duck was already gazing off into the distance. I wonder what he's looking at. "What's that?" he quacked. Could it be the beach? Goose honked. Duck's tail twitched with excited. "I'm pretty sure I love the beach." "You've been to the beach?" asked Goose. So you can see they have their beach hats and they're ready to go to the beach. "No, not yet," said Duck, and he took off down the hill. "Follow me, Goose. We are going to the beach." So you can see that the duck is very excited and the goose is still questioning whether he wants to go to the beach or not. Goose chased after Duck. But Duck, we already had our adventure, he called. Wait, he shouted. Slow down, he honked. So you can see that Duck is running and Goose is trying to catch up to him. Goose followed him through the brambles and tall grass until finally Duck stopped. I think we have arrived at the beach, said Duck. You can see that they're poking their heads up over the sand. Oh my, the beach is loud, yelled Duck over the sound of the waves. I can barely hear my own quack. Goose stared at the vast stretch of sky, sand, and sea. Isn't it magnificent? He said. Oh dear, the beach has so much water, quacked Duck. I feel tiny. Have you ever seen so much sand? Honked Goose. It's getting in my feathers, and it's too hot on my feet, said Duck. Let's go. Go swimming? Good idea, Duck, said Goose, and he raced off to the water's edge. So you can see they're looking at all the water, the big ocean. No, Goose, wait for me. You can see that the duck doesn't really want to go, but you can see way off in the distance there's a little goose head and he's running towards the water. Duck dipped his feet in the hot water. Goose, you know these waves are very... What do you think's going to happen? Do you think a big wave is going to come in? You can see that it might be coming. Uh-oh. You can see in this picture that they're in the wave. They got stuck in the wave. These waves are very fun. Is that what you were going to say, Duck? Honked Goose. No, not exactly. You can see that maybe the goose got a little bit more wet than, the duck got a little bit more wet than the goose. But the goose looks pretty happy. The two friends strolled along the beach. They met the locals. Some were friendly, like these birds, these little birds here that you might see on the beach. I think they might be seagulls. Have you ever seen a seagull on the beach? They always want to steal your french fries. Others were not. So this crab might be a little pinchy. Some crabs might try to pinch your feet. Some were shy. So what do you think is in that shell? I think it's a clam. Have you ever had a clam? They're pretty slimy. You can eat them for dinner, but they're pretty good too. Others were not. Oh, so that's a seagull. This seagull is honking. Have you ever heard a seagull? They're pretty loud at the beach. Goose thought Duck might enjoy searching for sea creatures under the rocks and seaweed. He did not. So you can see that Goose is searching in the water and the duck is up on the rock. Be careful, Goose. You don't know what's in there, Duck quacked. So you can see that Duck is a little afraid. They built a drip castle. I used to make sand castles at the beach a lot. You can bring your shovel and your bucket and make really cool castles. And they listened to the gentle roar of the ocean from deep within the seashell. It made Duck homesick. It sounds just like our gurgling stream, he quacked. Have you ever listened in a seashell? It's pretty cool. You can hear the ocean. Later in the day, when the sand had cooled and the waves had settled, Duck and Goose relaxed. You can see that they're lying down. They're sun tanning. I like the smell of the beach, Goose said. Me too, Duck agreed, but not as much as the meadow. Well, there's no place like the meadow, honked Goose. That's very true, said Duck. I think they're about ready to go back home. So late in the afternoon, Duck and Goose followed their long shadows home. They talked about their exciting day and about the friends they'd met. They talked about the hot sand and the cool water, the noisy crashing waves and the quiet tidal pools. Can you see what Goose has in his hand? It's a seashell. Back in the meadow at last, they watched the sun set, birds sang, and grass swished in the breeze. They both agreed that it was nice to be home. Duck, where shall we go next? Goose asked. Duck closed his eyes. How about to sleep? So you can see that they're both fast asleep after their big adventure. So that's a great way to talk about the beach. Now I thought it would be fun to do a snack that looks like the beach together. So, what do we need for this snack? Well, there are many things that you can use to make this snack. So I'm going to go through the ones that I'm going to be using, and then I'll tell you some other ones that you can use. So the first thing to hold our beach that you need is a little bowl or a cup. You can use a plastic one to be safe. So just make sure that it's little, because you don't want to do a big beach because you might not be able to eat it all by yourself. To make our sand, you can use, I'm using arrowroot cookies, or I call them baby cookies. And you can use vanilla cookies or any cookie that looks brown like sand. For my sand, I'm also going to use a bit of brown sugar to make them a little bit more sweet. Then I'm using some teddy bear crackers to make little sun tanners on my beach. You can use an animal cracker or anything that you want to use as a suntan. Then, to make the towel that our suntanners are going to lay on, I'm using some jam. Or you can use chocolate, so it would have to be flat so that you can lay your teddy bear on top. You can also use a striped candy to make it look like a towel. Then, to make our ocean, I'm using blue Jell-O, but you can also use vanilla pudding. That will make it look, and then use some blue food dye. And I use about 3 drops of blue food dye to make my vanilla pudding blue for the ocean. And then finally, we're going to need a plastic bag, and I'll show you what that's for later. A spoon, and a straw for our palm tree. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to put my camera down so you can see my table. Okay, so let's start with our water. I'm going to make it so that my water and my sand are about half of my bowl. You can also do it if you have a cup where you do the water on the bottom and then the sand on top. But because I'm using a bowl, I'm going to do it half and half. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because if you've ever been to the beach, you know that the waves come in at different lengths. So it can just cover whatever you want. So I'm just going to put my blue Jell-O down and squish it up so that it becomes little pieces. And I'm going to put it over to one side of my bowl. So you can see that it kind of looks like water. Make sure I get all my Jell-O out. And it's okay if your Jell-O takes up the whole part of your cup for now, because once you put the sand in, it'll fit better. Okay, now I'm going to move on to making my sand. So this is the fun part. For the sand, we have to make it look like it's been all crushed up. So I'm going to take 6 of my little cookies. So I have 4. I need 2 more. We're going to start out with 6, and if I need more, I'll get more. And I'm going to need my plastic bag. I'm going to put my cookies into my plastic bag. Now to make our sand, we're going to have to crush it up. So I make sure that my bag is closed all the way so I don't make too much of a mess. So if you want to crush up your cookies, you can use your hands, you can use a spoon, you can use a cup, whatever you want. So I'll start off with my hands. I'm just gonna and I'll show you how you can use a cup as well. You're just going to put your bag down. I'm going to release some of the air so I didn't get all my air out. Close my bag again. And then put your cup on top of your cookies and press down hard as you can. You can also do this with your spoon. I'm going to flip it around so I can make sure to get all the big pieces of cookie. And I'll just use my hands to try and get as many of the clumps as I can. If you want, you can ask your mom or dad to help with this. Okay, I'm going to use my cup one more time. Flip my bag around and try to get any of the big clumps. Okay, so I would say my sand is done. I'm going to go close up so you can see what it looks like. It looks like really, really small dust. Then, this is my favorite part. I want to add a little bit of brown sugar to make it a little bit more sweet. So I use about 2 little fingerful. I'll show you. This is how much I use. 2 of these for every 6 cookies that I use. So if I need to make more, then I know to use the same amount. So I'll do another one. This is my second clump. I'm going to wipe my hands off. Then I'm going to close my bag one more time. And I want to combine it because you can see that the cookie and the brown sugar are different. So I'm going to shake, shake, shake. mix it all around. Okay, so I would say my first batch of sand is ready. So I'm going to get my bowl again, and I'm going to push my Jell-O to one side, and I'm going to leave my spoon in the bowl to try and stop the Jell-O. And I'm going to get my bag, and I'm going to pour the sand onto the one side that isn't with Jell-O. And if you want, you can do little bits at a time and keep pushing the Jell-O back, and then put the sand where the Jell-O isn't. Okay, I think I've made enough sand the first round. So now my sand is a little tall, so I'm just going to try and so you can see how the sand is a little bit more than the Jell-O, but then if you look underneath, the Jell-O is a little bit more than the sand. So that's okay because the waves of the ocean maybe just didn't go as far as we thought. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to do my sunbathers. So I'm going to do 2 teddy bears and do 2 of my different towels so you can see. So the first one I'm going to do is my little chocolate one. I'm just going to put it wherever I want. You can put it wherever you want, but make sure it's in the sand because if you're sunbathing, you're usually on the sand. And my next one is going to be jam. I'm using peach jam, but you can use whatever jam you want. I'm going to use my spoon to get the jam. I'm just going to get about half or 1 teaspoon of jam. And I'm going to plop it down on the other side of my sand, away from my other towel. And I'm going to try and flatten it out so it looks like a towel. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle because there are many different kinds of beach towels. For example, I have a towel that looks like a surfboard. Okay. So you can see I have 2 of my towels. And now I need my teddy bears. I'm using 2 teddy bears. And I'm just going to put them right on top of my beach towels. So they're laying down. Sunbathing. Now, I'll go over again what you can use if you don't have these things. So the blue Jell-O, you could use vanilla pudding and blue food coloring to make the water. You can use any vanilla cookie or even a cracker if you want that looks like sand. You don't have to use brown sugar. I just wanted to because I think it makes it a little more sweet and I like sweet things. To make the towels, you can use chocolate, so another flat chocolate like a Kit Kat, Mars bar, even an Aero bar if you want. Or you can use a striped candy like a fruit roll-up. And I also used jam because I like the flavor of the fruity jam. And you can use any type of jam you want. And you don't have to use teddy bear crackers. If you have a bigger towel, you can use an animal cracker if you want. And then the last little thing that I want to do is, you saw that on the beach they had a lot of grass. And so I thought that we could make palm tree together. So I'm going to put this up a bit. So what you can do for your palm tree if you want is if you have a bendy straw, you can just loop it around and put it into a little clump. And then you have a tree. Or another way that you can do it, and this is where you'll need help from an adult, is you can get some scissors. So I have my scissors, and you'll ask your adult to make 3 cuts on like a triangle on the part of the straw where you usually drink from it. So I'm making 1, and I'll do 1 on the other side of the straw. I'll do 1 more in between. And then, if you bend it down and stick it in the sand, you can see that it looks like a palm tree. I'm going to bend it down a bit so that they're over the... So there you go. You have your beach in a bowl or a cup, whatever works best for you. And we're all finished. So thanks very much for making this awesome beach in a cup snack with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and come back to get your play online for some other fun summer crafts later on. Have a nice weekend. Bye.